Hi, welcome to this tutorial. I'm gonna teach you how to do clean plates in Photoshop. So let's get started. So first of all, we need to open Photoshop. And then one of the things that I'm gonna do is loading. I'm gonna pretty much create a new one. Or I can also go and look for the image since I already have it here in my desktop. Just gonna click and drag it. So let's actually bring the layers panel this way here. And my history under here. So first of all, we need to understand what we need to separate. In this case, we're going to be separating several things. Like, for example, the giraffe, the fence, including the wall that is here behind, and we're going to be separating also the foreground, okay? As well, we need to create a clean plate for our background. There's all these trees. So we need to eliminate the giraffe. So first of all, I'm gonna go and do a new layer. I'm gonna copy this layer. So I'm gonna just click and drag and drop it on this area. So this is just for security reasons. I always like to keep the original image pretty much on the bottom and lock it. So this is already locked by default, but you can always go and lock it and unlock it. It's up to you. Okay, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do some quick selection. I'm gonna use the quick selection tool as this one here, or W on your keyboard. Um, Pressing Alt and the right click mouse and just drag it, it will adjust how big and how small is your brush. Okay, this is Alt plus the right click mouse. Just drag it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of like a regular size. I don't know, something like this. Something that give me an opportunity to do it kind of quick. So I'm just gonna start selecting. Bloop, 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 bloop. So I'm gonna do it smaller according to what areas I'm trying to grab. And don't worry if it's not exactly perfect, because like you can see here, start getting out. So in order to remove a little bit of stuff, for example, if you ended up grabbing something like this and you want to remove it, you just hold down the Alt key and just start removing. Notice how my mouse got like a negative symbol on the middle, like my cursor. If I unhold it, it goes back to the plus. So that's the indication this is going to be starting to add. And if I hold down the Alt key, it's going to start to remove. Okay? So, cool. It's actually, I'm kind of going to fast forward on this part here. So it's going to be a lot of selection, but you will be able to see what I'm doing. So now we have our giraffe completely selected. So we will need to go ahead and just select and mask here in the top. So this is going to bring us like kind of like a view like this, like kind of like your alpha. So this is pretty good because we can start seeing what is the areas that kind of like select by accident actually. So again, our brush size is going to be by holding Alt and dragging the right click. So I'm going to kind of like go ahead. I'm going to start removing this points that look like we ended up grabbing it a little bit. So this is going to give us our alpha. Remember, zoom is set on or C on your keyboard. And if you want to zoom out, just hold down the C letter and Alt. See how it's changed there? And just click. It's going to be left click. Zoom, and then zoom out. So we can start seeing changes here on our view mode. We can change to overlay if you want to see how much of the giraffe was extracted and how much might be probably still in an error. You can do that. In this case, it looks like we pretty much did a good job. For example, here on this area here, you can see that I didn't end up grabbing this part here. So I can go ahead and just grab my brush here on the options for this tool. Kind of like just select those areas there. So cool. So the giraffe itself, it kind of looks, it doesn't look bad though, overall. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of like clean up the selection. It doesn't look so crazy, but I don't want to take your time too much, so I'm gonna fast forward on this part too. Okay, so we ended up already cleaning up our giraffe as well. It looks okay. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good actually. Let's start going into separating this from the background, since we already have the selection going on, and we kind of like clean it up as closer to the giraffe, and it doesn't look so crazy. So let's go into the content on output 2. We're gonna be selecting here layer mask. This is gonna be creating kind of like a alpha matte for this image, and we're gonna be saying okay. So we can see here our alpha got created. So now the next thing that we need to do is go in and reselect our giraffe. In this case, I'm gonna go into the select menu. I'm gonna go reselect, or you can do Shift Control D, whatever is your preference. So that will be recalling the last selection, including all the cleanup that we ended up doing after we went into select and mask. So I'm gonna go into creating another copy of my background. And on this copy of the background, I'm going to fill up all these things that are like selected at this point. So I can either go into go into edit, fill, or you can do Shift F5, whatever is your preference. So if I do this, when I click, it's gonna give me this dialog. We want to be choosing on our content, the content aware. You can choose different things, but what content aware means is that Photoshop is gonna try to kind of like intelligent thinking, okay, this is the selection that they want to remove, with what I can fill it up. So we're gonna go into the regular settings for now. So if I click OK, oh, okay, so you need to have your layer unlocked, I'm sorry. So let's go again, edit, fill, and then OK. So now Photoshop is thinking about what it's doing. So let's see. Okay, then we cannot see the result because I have this layer on. But if I turn on this layer on the top, we can start seeing all our stuff. You can go into select, deselect, or Control D in order to take away all the margin ends that were like the selection indication. So see that actually Photoshop ended up doing a really good job here. But we still have these little lines around that kind of like give our image like a ghost image of where the giraffe used to be. So in order to do that, to remove these areas, I'm going to go into my lasso tool or L in your keyboard. Select this. I'm going to zoom in. Remember, zoom is just press the C letter and just left click on it. I'm going to hold the space bar so I can actually like pan around. Holding the space bar and just left click. It will allow you to pan around. So I'm going to select these areas, like for example this area here. So, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go edit, Shift F5. No mistake. Oh, I'm doing it in the wrong layer. Make sure that you are in the right layer that we are modifying at this point. So edit, and now it's actually allowed me. So, and I'm going to say okay. I'm going to deselect that and see how it ended up removing. I'm going to just go back and forward, see how it was, and then how it looks now. So Photoshop is trying to clean up all that area that we are just selecting. So I'm just going to select with my lasso tool again, like a bunch of area here. Try to get in just the area that is affected, not go into this area like the one that it used to be the normal thing. Because that way you're going to be modifying a lot of the original plate, and usually it's not good. You want to keep it as intact as possible. So try to go as close as possible here, not like exactly like completely like on the line, but try to give it like space to work on. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna go Shift F5. In this case, there's the shortcut. Remember, it was edit and then it was fill. There's a shortcut for that. So, and I'm gonna do OK. Then Control D to deselect, and there you go. So I'm gonna start fast forward in this area too because it's gonna be a lot of cleanup, but I will allow you to see a little bit on it. Okay. Okay, so notice there was a couple areas where I was not able to kind of like get it right. So in this case, what I want to do is just go into my constant tool, this one that's here, or S in your keyboard. So I'm gonna click there, and then I'm gonna try to sample an area that's kind of similar to the area that I want to remove. In this case, for example, this area here is what I want to remove. So holding down the Alt key, notice how my indicator change. So I'm gonna hold down my Alt key, and then I'm gonna do left click mouse in order to sample that area. I'm gonna release my Alt key, and I'm just notice how now I have like a sample of that green. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of like click and probably sample again another area there in order to remove that little area that it was causing us a problem. I can do probably from this area here too, something really quick. So let's see how it looks actually. So this doesn't look so bad. This is actually pretty good because this is how we need it. Notice that we also have some hair of the giraffe there. What we can do is just go with the clone stamp tool, or we can start doing what we were doing with the lasso tool. Just select that area that is causing us like the hair of the giraffe. In this case, I'm not going to focus on the hair of the giraffe, so I'm going to try to remove it. And then Shift F5, say OK, and there you go, it's done already. And if we still have like areas that are not completely done, let's go into the clone stamp tool, select that area close to that, and just sample that area. And there you go. You will have something a little bit more smoother there. So let's go back. So yeah, that looks pretty good. So now we have our general clean plate, but obviously because here we're trying to separate our background or foreground and our midground, we need to do another process. So let's get started with that process. Okay. So first of all, also remember to rename your layers. In this case, if I go just to this layer, our giraffe is already separated because we create that alpha. So I'm gonna go and say here giraffe or something like that, or main element, whatever you wanna call it. I'm gonna call it main element because this is what we're gonna be using. Then we have, this is our general clean plate. In order to rename the layers, remember just to double click on the name, and that will allow you to rename your layers. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate my general clean plate so I can start separating stuff from here. So the next thing that I want to do is separate my midground and my foreground. So the easiest one is going to be our foreground. Let me show you how to do that one because we can get it out of the way. So I'm going to zoom in so I can get it like kind of like here. And for this one, I'm going to be using, again, one of my selection tools. We can do, again, the quick tool selection. Just trying to quick select that one. So we have our selection already done. What I usually do after this is, since I don't have to go and kind of like still go into select and mask and all this stuff, it's good to have it, but it's not completely necessary. You can also go into just right click on top of the selection and say layer be a copy. What it's going to do is going to create another layer that's going to be containing whatever you have selected at this point. So in this case, our racks, they are like the foreground that we're doing. I'm going to call this one foreground rocks, so I know what it is. So kind of going to go and just reselect this area here. Doesn't have to be completely perfect. So if we still have like these areas here, that's good. Okay, so I'm selecting the whole area again. And I can go into my general clean plate copy. And what I'm going to do is isolate this part here, like we were doing with the image, the edit, and then fill. I'm going to do a contour aware, and I'm going to say OK. So I'm going to turn up the foreground. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm pretty much going to go and kind of remove the ghost. So I'm going to just fast forward on this part. Okay, so now we have the whole foreground removed. And now I'm going to say here, it's going to start being seen our midground. Or empty in this case. So I have my foreground and I have my giraffe. So far so good. So right now we have created our giraffe. We have removed it from the plate. We have cleaned a little bit of the overall. We have created a foreground layer. As well, we have cleaned the background. And now the next step that we're going to do is on this same layer, I want to separate the whole bush and trees that we have in the background from the fence. So I'm going to go and start. Just a second. I'm going to start doing selection. It's a different kind of selection because I don't want to kind of like go and kind of like trying to pretty much use my quick selection and then start resizing. I'm like trying to do all this thing and then ended up running into the issue that suddenly I ended up grabbing this part here where is the trees in the background. So in order to do kind of like a quick selection of this fence, I'm going to go into select. I'm going to go into color range. So remember it's select, color range. Maybe somewhere here. Color range. So I click on it and it's going to give me this image, right? Right now, it kind of give me an idea of what since I did it earlier, it kind of gave me the last selection that I did. But let's say, for example, we have something like this as a beginning or something like this. So what you're going to do is select your eyedropper tool, click on it, and you're going to start clicking on the area where you think does have the most information of the color that you want to remove. So in this case, I'm just going to select a random place around here. So now notice how it's changed and telling me, okay, this is the area that you want to probably select. So in this case, I want to make it a little bit bigger because obviously we have more sticks here going on, and also we have the other sticks here on the other side. So I'm going to add to the eyedropper. So if I click on this area here where you have like the plus sign, I'm going to start selecting, just clicking on the area so I give you a little bit more example what I want. And see how it started kind of like populating a little bit more. So I'm going to go this area here. So obviously you start seeing that it also starts grabbing the top part here. I can go into the subtract from sample tool that's next to the adding and just try to kind of like, I don't know, where is it, that part? I think it's probably this part here. Yeah, it's that thick. So I kind of like start removing and then re-adding. And so you kind of get a little bit of the thing here. It's okay if it's a little bit like a noise here on the top. I will tell you how to remove it from it. So let's say, okay, this is a good area that I want to use. So I'm going to say okay. And notice how now we have nicely selected all this area with the proper holes. But obviously, as I said, we have some issue of some areas being selected that we don't want. So I'm going to zoom out here. Oh, also here in this area. So I'm going to use just, again, my regular laser tool. I'm going to do Alt. Notice how my laser on the bottom, if I do Shift, it gives me a plus sign. I should hold Shift down the key. And if I do Alt key, it's give me a minus plus, a minus a sign. So I'm going to try to hold down my Alt, and then I'm going to use my left click mouse to start kind of like selecting this area here. It's going to be really rough. So, and then I'm just going to go around the edges. And notice how now it removed all that noise that I had before from the area that I selected. So also, here's a couple ones that are not, they went away. So because they were really close and I didn't select them. So I'm gonna do the same thing, laser tool, or you can do the quick selection tool and just do Alt, hold down Alt and just remove them. So, but also be careful because it's gonna try to remove the areas there too. So I'm just gonna go with the regular lasso tool. Hold down Alt, select that areas, and so on. So I'm gonna fast forward in this, but you can see how I'm gonna be cleaning out this. Cool. We ended up cleaning our rocks and everything that was selected by accident by the tool. Now, what I want to do is kind of like clean up this area here. As you can see, we just want the sticks to be selected, not the whole ground that's on the background. So in order to do that, I'm gonna use another tool here. This is if you go and hold the lasso tool area, where is this tool? If you hold down the left mouse click, it will give you other options of selection. So we have a magnetic lasso tool, and we also have our polygonal lasso tool. In this case, I'm going to use my polygonal lasso tool. And what is this tool is going to do? It's going to allow me to do straight lines. In this case, since I want to remove this area here, I'm going to do Alt. Notice how my tool gets a negative sign. And I'm going to click on it and notice how it's actually creating like a straight line. So in this case, I want to go like this. Just click, click, and click. Left click mouse. Kind of like trying to go around the area where I want to keep. And I'm going to go all the way up to smooth out a little bit that selection too. And then I'm just going to kind of clean up this area too. Okay, there we go. Click on the beginning point, and that will help me to remove it in more like a straight line manner than just going and just trying to plane out all the selection and stuff like that. So I'm gonna do that for all these sticks that we have here. So I'm just gonna fast forward. It's gonna be the same thing.
Okay, so after we finish our selection and we already have cleaned up all this area where it was selected by mistake and all the stuff, the next thing that we can do is pretty much go and do a right click on it, and then we can say layer via copy. So this will give us, like it happens here in the foreground rock, it's going to give us another layer. Okay. So this is the foreground layer that's going to keep us. Now I need to start creating my background. Since here I'm not gonna rename this one midground, and this one now where I create I was doing my selection and everything. I'm gonna double click and rename it background. So after I do this, I want to start kind of like removing the fence from here. So one of the things that we can do is using the same technique that we were using before, just with the lasso tool and try to grab it all this stuff. But if we do something like that, let me actually show you what's gonna happen. So then I click Shift F5, go to the where and say OK. So Photoshop is gonna try to recreate like this rocks here to the top, and that's not good because we know that behind the fence is just trees. So what we can do, I'm just gonna do Control Z. In this case, we can use our clone stamp tool. This one here, or you can access by clicking S on your keyboard. And technically, what we need to do with this one is we're gonna go and grab like in an area. For example, I'm gonna try. I'm probably gonna try something closer to this here. Remember to bring my layer size. Is just you're gonna hold down the Alt key and then you're gonna do the right click and just drag it until you get the size that you want. So in this case, I'm gonna kind of select this area here so I can sample it. Like I'll click. I'm gonna start cleaning out this area here. So, and it's okay if I go a little bit over the rocks, because in this case I want to remove pretty much everything that's around the fence. So guys, notice that because I have the selection going, it's not gonna go away from it. So it's just gonna help me to remove that area there. I'm gonna do the same thing here. And I like wanna go and grab like an area like around here, example this area. Alt, just right click and drag it in order to adjust my brush size. I'm gonna start cleaning out all this thing. So all these steps here and sticks. So I'm pretty much gonna do the same thing for all these ones. But I want to bring some attention before I start doing this and just fast forward. Notice this area here. This is not gonna give us like a lot of freedom to work because pretty much like the area is so small. So we're gonna need to be really careful when we're creating the clean plate for our floor, since we're pretty much gonna be keeping an eye that it's not kind of like bringing the other post and kind of like paint it out here. So for example, if I go and click, I don't know, for example here, Alt, left click, and then I start kind of like, I'm like, oh, okay, sure, no problem. I can start painting out something, I don't know, like around here. Notice if I grab the wrong area, it's gonna start doing this. It's gonna start kind of like duplicating the area that I want to remove. We don't want that because definitely we want to remove our sticks and make it clear on the background. And this way, if we keep using the tool in the way that I was using it, it's just duplicated the another area that's just a problem area. So in this case, I'm just gonna select like pretty much in the middle, just to be on the safe side. I'm gonna grab this area out, and then the left click mouse. Try to align it here, and then just remove it, and go down also. I'm gonna pretty much be doing all this stuff for the other sticks, since there are so many. I'm just gonna fast forward this area, so we don't lose that much time. We're just doing the same technique. Okay, so now we have our background pretty much isolated too. If we can see here, we have our midground, just that area there. We have also our foreground, there are our rocks and closer to it, to the camera, and also it's our giraffe there. So the next step that we have to do here in order to continue, let's say for example, I don't want this two layers since I'm not going to be using anymore, and I want to keep this kind of like clean when I bring into After Effects. I'm going to select both layers. Just click on the first one and then hold down the Shift key and left click on the second one. And you're just going to press the Delete key on your keyboard. That's gonna get rid of those layers. Also, I'm gonna keep an order. I want to go from the first layer to be the one that's gonna be closer to my camera. So I'm gonna bring my main element down. Uh, it's gonna be coming pretty much my second layer. If I bring it down, it's just gonna click and drag and just let it there. So now I have my foreground, I have a main element, my midground, and my background, and that's the organization process, just to make it simple for us. And the next thing is to save this that we already have done. So in order to save, you're just gonna go into File, Save As, and then you're gonna select the folder that you want. In this case, I'm gonna say it's gonna be number 2, and try to save it as a PSD. Then just click Save. Just maximize compatibility, definitely you want that, and we're gonna say okay. And here we go. So on the next tutorial, I'm gonna teach you how to bring this Photoshop file into After Effects.